Do you know how to define metabolic flexibility? Do you know how to really achieve it for your clients? And do you know that there are a lot of mistakes that some trainers are making in regard to their clients' metabolic flexibility that may be getting in the way of them getting the results that they deserve from the program that you've designed? I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to She Means Fitness Business, a division of my business, Voice for Fitness. And at Voice for Fitness, we believe that you want to be an inspirational example to other midlife women. And in order to do it, you need a profitable health and fitness coaching business. The problem is a lack of clients or a lack of revenue from said clients. And that can make you feel really uncertain about whether you can really succeed, do what you want to do with this business and your vision for it. And I believe that you deserve consistent, dependable revenue from clients you love. And look, I've been there. I know how it feels to have all the skills and the desire to help, but not be able to actually get enough business or make enough money. I've been there. And it's why I now train fitness professionals internationally. Here's how we do it. First of all, we have to get you more clients, more traffic, because you've got probably something really special already. And then we have to make sure that you're charging enough so you've got profit from it. And last but not least, and a quick chaser, is that we need to make sure we keep time flexibility in your schedule, because that time freedom as well as the financial freedom have to go hand in hand. You need them both in order to enjoy them. So you can book a call with me. And in the meantime, get the Health and Fitness Professionals business scorecard that I put together so you can identify right away where are the holes in and what's the reason that you're not either attracting or you're not converting when you get clients who are following you. You can stop feeling like your dream is sleeping away and watching other less qualified heart-centered coaches or influencers make sales and get more clients. You can start probably earning $5,000 more a month easily within your first 90 days. All right, let's get into this. So this is really not marketing, not sales today. We often talk about those things, but this is something that will actually help you leverage your programming. And the need for understanding this is really quite great. So I get asked a lot of questions by our Flipping 50 menopause fitness specialists, both directly and indirectly. And they don't necessarily come with this term and say, how can I help my clients with metabolic flexibility? But that is ultimately what we need to do in order to help them get to the bottom of why they don't feel good, why they can't lose that belly fat. And putting together the myriad of, I've got this issue or that issue and joints and getting in the way of me doing X, Y, and Z. Metabolic flexibility is what it comes down to. So your clients need it. And let's define it. Metabolic flexibility, it refers to the ability of your body to efficiently switch between different fuel sources. So obviously, you know what those are: carbohydrates and your protein and your fat, and adapt to changes in nutrient availability, meaning, your client eats a lot. Okay, Thanksgiving Day, or it's a birthday, those times, or your client skips a meal. What will happen to their metabolism if they're metabolically flexible is, really good. And if they're not, potentially their metabolism isn't damaged, fat storage doesn't turn up. First of all, if they skip a lot of meals that are depriving, your metabolism shuts down, right? The more you eat, the more you tell your body to burn. The less you eat, the more you tell your body to conserve and stop burning. So metabolic flexibility, it's a key aspect of metabolic health. It plays a role in maintaining energy balance and weight regulation. And I mean, how many times have you heard that? Nobody talks about energy balance. We're almost always in the era we're in and talking to midlife. If you're saturated in that as much as I am, we're not even talking about balance. We're talking about constantly wanting to cheat the system and be in a deficit until we can't handle that any longer. And because we're constantly thinking about food, the food we can have, the food we can't have, we end up being so far from any energy balance that we can never actually attain what it is we want, right? Weight regulation. When we consume food, the body breaks down the macronutrients, again, that's carbs and fats and proteins, into smaller molecules that are used as fuel. Now, we all know that carbohydrates are used as fuel very readily. It's easy for the body to go get them. Fats, less so, especially if the fats have gotten stored as fat in the body. Your body doesn't like to go. It's like sending a child down to the basement or out to the garage to get something out of the fridge or freezer there. They don't want to do it, number one, because that's exercise. And it's just further away. It's more of a hassle. Knowing that it's there is great, but having to go get it or be the one who goes gets is not great. Your body doesn't like to do that either. But if you're eating the right kind of fuel, the right kind of fat, I mean, like MCT oil actually can be burned. And so there are some that are easier, but the last is protein. Now, we actually don't want to use protein for fuel. It's a little harder. And ideally, we want that protein to go to our muscles' benefit. And we definitely don't want the body to be breaking down muscle, but it will if it's not getting enough. So, metabolic flexibility allows the body, if you've got it, right, or your clients have it, they allow the body to utilize different fuel sources based on the energy needs and nutrient availability. So based on energy needs, if you've got somebody who's doing a high intensity interval training session, they're going to opt for carbohydrates. If they're doing a longer, more slow kind of an exercise, they're going to use a higher percentage of fat for fuel. This is just a review, right? You know that I'm speaking and preaching to the choir here, but your clients don't necessarily know that. But you also have that nutrient availability. What if there isn't any? What if your client is coming in hot from work and they didn't actually have a snack? It's been 3 or 4 hours since their last meal. I mean, they're probably not going to have quite as much energy, but what if there isn't? What will it use for fuel? Will it use fat? Or will it use stored glycogen, right? And the latter is the right answer most of the time, because that's just easier to pull it from the liver and the muscle first, stored glycogen, as opposed to going into fat storage. And it's part of this whole metabolism puzzle that occurs in midlife. So in a metabolically flexible state, and this is definitely something we want, the body can easily switch between using carbs and fats for energy. For example, after a meal, glucose is from carbohydrates. Primarily, it's readily available. It's like you've just eaten it. It's like those people who graze all day and snack. They've got carbs constantly available. They don't have to go into fat storage. So it's where you want to talk to your clients potentially about, let's try 3 meals, no snacks, and at least a 12-hour fast overnight. Let's try getting you into fat storage. Fat burning. Wow, that was a slip of the tongue. I'm not going to edit that. So make sure you're clear on that. But your body has to get to 3 to 4 hours. And that's when after a meal, can start again dipping into fat stores, right? So that's kind of a key. If you've got somebody snacking all day, they're not really helping themselves. So during fasting or periods of low carb intake, the body will shift to using stored fats as the primary fuel source. So don't think it's got to be a 72-hour, 3-day fast. It doesn't. Even just between meals, if you're getting at least like to the 4-hour point, your body has shifted and your digestive system actually gets a break too, which is great. Having good metabolic flexibility is beneficial for overall health. It can contribute to weight management, meaning it's easier. It allows your body to effectively use stored body fat for energy, which can help in reducing excess body weight, maintaining a healthy body composition, and moreover, metabolic flexibility is also associated with improved insulin sensitivity. Ding, 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 and better blood sugar control, reduce risk of metabolic diseases such as type 2 diabetes. But for midlife women, this is totally spare tire talk, right? If you want to get rid of it, we need insulin sensitivity. And generally a woman, say in her 50s, doesn't have as good of insulin sensitivity as she might have in her late 30s, depending on where she entered perimenopause. It's where it started to get disturbed. Certain factors influence your metabolic flexibility. So, for instance, regular physical activity and exercise can enhance it by increasing the body's capacity to burn fat. I mean, when you get more fit, again, I know this is just a review, this is not new knowledge, but I think sometimes we're so deep in it every single day that we sometimes forget pull back. What's the bigger picture here, right? So when you're more fit, your body has an ability to burn more fat, and therefore you improve your insulin sensitivity. A balanced diet that includes a variety of macronutrients, the fat, the protein, the carbs, and minimizes excessive consumption of refined carbs, right? We're talking sugars. And that can also support metabolic flexibility. Or, I mean, the opposite is true. You eat a lot of processed foods, and that's where you get your carbohydrates. It's probably got a lot of extra sugars or things easily metabolized as sugar, and that harms your metabolic flexibility. Factors like sedentary lifestyle, diet high in those processed foods, added sugars, chronic stress, poor sleep can impair flexibility. This is really, really important. So I'm going to echo that again. What impairs your client's metabolic flexibility? And this is important for this reason. So if you go right for, let's talk about the diet, let's talk about fasting, or let's talk about your exercise, and you're not asking about sleep, and then hinging everything to get better sleep, if she's not, you're missing out, because you can't improve metabolic flexibility, and you may make it worse because you will increase the level of chronic stress by causing it. She's already stressed, she's not sleeping, and you add exercise to it, or you add a caloric deficit, you are making it worse. And dear trainer, dear health coach, we're not immune to this. So we sometimes do this to ourselves, right? And sometimes it is in maybe just a plea for, oh my gosh, right? Like if they only knew, like I'm not in as great a shape as they think. I was on a phone call yesterday with a client, and she said, when we were there for the retreat, I just thought, oh my gosh, you're wearing these tops, and your torso, like your midriff is so tight, and I just thought, wow, you don't even know what people are looking at and judging. But personally, I thought, oh gosh, you don't know how far from the truth that is, because in midlife, for any of us, we're still susceptible, right, to stressors. We have families, we have pets, and we have cars, and we have homes, and all the things that could go wrong. And, of course, do, right? It's not if they will, it's when, it's a matter of time, something will not go right. I think it actually helps considerably. I've learned to expect that things won't go perfectly, like something would be wrong. I can give you an example. I'm going down this rabbit hole, but this is where it's really important to identify that you and I can identify with our midlife clients. If we are in midlife, there's no way we couldn't. And that means we're going to go through some of the same things. And you're not alone, which is why I'm telling you this and telling you this story. If you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I must be the only coach or the only trainer who can't figure this out. And, it's simply not true. And we often don't tell this story. We don't talk about it amongst ourselves, but I'm opening up the door for it. I know it's a one-way street, and, you're potentially not going to respond back to me about this in Instagram or on Facebook if you're listening, and that is okay. I don't expect you to, because I know that all your clients are following you there. Why would you? But I want you to know, there's probably not a trainer or health coach in midlife that I've talked to who isn't judgmental of her own self, who, walks away from me. And in a photo shoot once with a woman who had just finished, I think, her third Ironman ever. And I believe she was in her early 60s, and she's walking away, strong woman, got her own bike and it's custom painted and she has a sponsor even. And she's walking away from me and she knows I'm taking a photo of her walking away. And she's like, don't get my cellulite. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like 3 times now you've survived days of, 140.2 miles traveled by swim, bike, and running. And we still think about that. We still judge ourselves by the imperfections as opposed to what we did do right. So coming back to, it's a day-to-day thing. And, fantastic if I was hosting a retreat and I was having a good week, but I'm also menopausal and the hormones sometimes are up and down with getting dosage right for supplements. It's all a mixed bag, and don't feel badly if you yourself are taking this information in for you. So realize too, if you're finding, no, I'm having a really smooth journey through, that can change. I was pretty flippant myself until I was about 55. And I was like, I'm not going to have any of these signs and symptoms. Yay me. And then I did, it's just kind of, wheels can fall off the bus. And somebody just recently said this, I've said this too, is sometimes we get, what it is that we need in order to teach the lessons that to the people that we're teaching. So it so much better when you've been there yourself. Yes, the knowledge and the skills, but the empathy is a reason why you will be more successful with your clients than anyone else could be who is not in that moment themselves. So let me review this again. What impairs clients' metabolic flexibility? Cutting calories too low for too long. Now, a little cut back on caloric intake, that actually is one method of fasting. So some fasts don't have to be water fasts only. They don't have to just be intermittent fasting where you're limiting a window of eating, but instead there may be like 5 days, like the fasting mimicking diet designed by Dr. Valto Longo. I'm sorry. And that is just like a decreased caloric intake. It's also very low in protein, and that is a part of intermittent fasting for some. The biggest key is after that fast, you need to eat and you need to get that protein back in. So it's a short time restricted protein intake. It is not long term. Otherwise, ultimately, you're probably going to lose that muscle and short time, you might actually see a little increase or a little tick up of the protein. Kind of depends on where you are. So fasting, while also decreasing caloric intake for a short period of time, may be positive stressor, but for too long without that post feed can backfire. Over exercise and under eating combined. So essentially, this is what a lot of people do, trying to create a caloric deficit. They're trying to burn like 400 more calories a day, and then they're also decreasing their calorie count by 400 calories. That's an 800 calorie deficit if we started at what is their norm. That's a lot. And think about this. I mean, seriously, if I asked every one of my clients right now to plug in how many calories are you getting on a regular basis, very few of them would probably be over 15 or 1600 before we started working together. And I'm talking high functioning, average weight, average frame women who make a lot of decisions. I mean, your brain uses glucose, y'all. You need some calories for that. And they're exercising intentionally as well. And they're not taking in more than 1,500 calories. I mean, that's dangerous. Let's say then we add an 800 caloric deficit to that. Good grief. This person we're putting them in ultimate stress. This is not a way to achieve weight management or lean muscle mass for longevity purposes at all. Not sleeping is that other biggest risk for metabolism slowing. So I want to make sure that you understand You can't go right for calories and what they're eating or right for the exercise either. You got to go for the sleep and then make the food choices and the exercise choices based on what will get better sleep. Then when the sleep is there, then you can start changing and push the accelerator on the maybe dietary changes or exercise changes. Really important that you notice this. So we teach a specific methodology in how you prioritize inside of the Flipping 50 Menopause Specialist. And if this is foreign to you, or you would have gone for weight loss first and not stood your ground. So you may intuitively, you may just knowledge wise know this. But if you're not willing to stand your ground when your client argues with you, because often they will, right? And they will say, no, well, I really would rather do this first. And I hear this too often. Don't be one of these trainers, please, that your client shows up and you ask, well, what do you want to work on today? No, 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 and no. Now, as a counter to that, as a coach, I have certain coaching packages where when you operate as a coach, coaching is not training. So fitness training, somebody is actually reaching out specifically for an exercise description or prescription. Yes, described as well, but prescription based on how you assessed them, what their goals were, any special conditions, and you are pulling that all together and giving it to them. That means you should be telling them, here's what we're on schedule to do. Tell me what you've done recently and how you're feeling today, and let's decide if that's still the best plan. That's how that should go at the very introduction to a beginning of a session. If you're a trainer, but if you're a health coach, here's how I work. And this is that each client I meet with does a prep form if they're a VIP client. And I will review that first, but it tells me they're prepared. They have thought about, here's the homework that I agreed to do. They're telling me, did I do it? Or if I didn't do it, why not? What interrupted it? What got in the way? And what do I want to focus on this time? What are the challenges that I'm facing for this next week or the block between this session and the next session? I know they're prepared. And when I read that, I'm a little bit more prepared to jump in and ask the right questions. That is a little bit more like, what do you want to work on today? Right? But that's coaching. That's not training. So know which hat you're wearing if you wear them both. So important. Let's talk about sugar burning versus fat burning, because ultimately that's the metabolic flexibility difference. Factors like all those things that impair your metabolic flexibility, like sleep, the bigger caloric deficit that you're creating that causes stress, they lead to a preference for glucose, sugar, as the primary fuel source, and they hinder your body's ability to efficiently utilize fat source. So you've heard this question, are you a sugar burner or are you a fat burner? Which do you want to be? Yeah, fat burner, right? So improving metabolic flexibility can be achieved through lifestyle modifications like regular exercise, but not generic. It's got to be the right kind of exercise for the client as they present to you now, based on science and symptoms. A balanced diet. But remember this, a balanced diet for midlife women is not, according to guidelines, it's not, 10 to 35% of protein and, 60% of carbohydrates and, 10 to 15% fat. It's not that. Balanced is like a thumbprint for a woman. There's some basic blueprints you want to follow, but then you've got to look at what's happening for her. And if you test her, as I do with some clients, we know what DNA she's got. We know she has a preference basically for certain things. I, for instance, do better with a slightly higher carbohydrate count. Now, I'm also a woman in midlife who is less sensitive to insulin. So I can't go crazy with that. I have to remember at this point in my life, I've still got to decrease the amount of carbs and make sure it's specifically a right kind of carbs. But you can improve your body's ability to adapt to different nutrient conditions, like what's available. So remember, it's got to be the right type of exercise, the right type of diet. And body weight, and all of this saying this will help with weight management. It's body weight may be far less important than body composition first. Body weight, what if it went up a little bit, but it went up because you have more muscle, and then decreased finally because you have less inflammation and you're exercising in the right way. And all of those things can be super helpful for you. All right. So in this episode, I'm going to put in the show notes a couple other episodes about training your clients, training midlife clients, ways to get better results, training your menopause fitness. And here's where show notes will be: fitnessmarketingmastery.com/metabolic flexibility. And what are you waiting for? We need you right now more than ever. If you are not yet certified, confident, reading signs and symptoms, I want you to consider the menopause or the Flipping 50 menopause fitness specialist. It's open right now while I release this live. And if you're getting there and the doors are closed, get on that list so you learn how to save by learning early and first when we open the doors.